In the opening scenes, we see young people having fun, and alcohol is an integral part of this fun. The intoxicated youth were not considering the consequences and were disrupting public order. Later, the administration of the Copenhagen High School held a preventive talk with the parents of teenagers, asking them to take action. Tommy is a physical education teacher at this school who has long lost enthusiasm for his work. Peter, a music teacher, experiences the same as does Nikolai, who teaches psychology. Martin, a history teacher, is in a similar situation. He presented the material very monotonously and even confused the lesson topic. One of the students noticed this and left the class. Martin's family life is also falling apart. He has a wife and 2 sons, but he still feels lonely. When Martin asked his wife in the evening if she was bored with him, Anika admitted that he hasn't been the same guy she married for a long time. The next day, the school principal told Martin that parents of students wanted to talk to him. And it was not just 2 as Martin thought, but many. The parents are outraged by the fact that the teacher doesn't care about his subject or the students, even though history is a major subject. If this continues, the students won't achieve the passing grade required for university admission. Martin justified this by saying that students were too dependent on gadgets, but he promised to remedy the situation. After work, Martin planned to go to the friend's birthday party. Today is Nikolai's 40th birthday. Anika was absolutely uninterested in where her husband was going. He wasn't particularly close to his sons either. Martin was tired of such a life, but he couldn't change anything. Martin stopped by to pick up Tommy, who was divorced. His only company was a very old dog. 4 friends gathered at a restaurant. Martin refused to drink alcohol because he has a lot of work tomorrow. Nikolai has a wife and 3 children. It would seem that nothing else is needed for happiness, but Nikolai, like his friends, doesn't feel satisfied with his life. Nikolai told the friends about the theory of the scientist psychotherapist Finn Skårderud, that alcohol in small doses is beneficial for humans. Allegedly half a ppm daily improves mood and increases productivity. These words made Martin think. The friends knew about his problems at work. Tommy advised Martin to be stricter with the students. Until they feel authority, they won't respect him. However, Nikolai disagrees, believing that the problem lies in Martin's lack of self-confidence and joy. The waiter offered the guests vodka made in Russia. This time Martin didn't refuse the drink. Soon the waiter offered the guests expensive wine, and Martin didn't refuse again. The friends noticed tears in Martin's eyes. He confessed that he felt lonely. Anika works night shifts, and Martin hardly sees her. When the men asked if he had thought about other women, Martin replied no, because Anika is the mother of his children. Peter remembered how 12 years ago Martin, just starting to work at the school, was going to defend his doctoral dissertation in history. Martin could have become a great scientist, but the birth of children thwarted his future plans. Tommy also remembered how Martin was a rebel in his youth and took dance lessons. No one could have imagined that each of their lives would turn into routine. But today the men decided to forget about everything and have a good time. After all, they deserved it. In the morning, Martin as usual arrived at his disliked job. Yesterday had been fun, but as soon as Martin sobered up, he was back in a gloomy mood. Recalling Nikolai's words about Finn Skårderud's hypothesis, he locked himself in the restroom and drank a little alcohol. It really helped. Martin felt braver, and telling the students to be quiet, began the lesson. After work meeting Nikolai on the street, Martin whispered to the friend that he decided to test the hypothesis, so he couldn't drive. Nikolai, who has a wife and small children waiting for him at home, offered to give him a ride. According to Nikolai, they all should try this hypothesis themselves, so he asked Martin to call the other guys. Meeting Peter and Tommy, Martin shared his experience. Perhaps if they all start drinking a little at work, their lives will improve. The main thing is to do it only during the day and stop in the evening so that they feel normal in the morning. Nikolai and Peter decided to formalize this as a psychological study to see what the outcome would be later. The friends agreed to drink only during working hours. According to the terms of the experiment, they should stop after 8 p.m. and on weekends. Early in the morning, Nikolai was woken up by his young son, who did not tell him in time that he wanted to go to the toilet. Nikolai's life now revolves around taking care of the children. The wife gets tired and is always irritable. To relieve stress, Nikolai went to the pantry and had a glass of wine. Meanwhile, Martin purchased a device that measures alcohol level. Before starting the lesson, he ordered the students to put away their gadgets. No one knows that there's something stronger than tea in his thermos. This time Martin approached the lesson with enthusiasm, sparking interest among the students. Under the influence of alcohol, Peter also excelled in his music lesson. If usually the students looked bored, Now they were engaged in the lesson, all thanks to the teacher's creative approach. During the break, all friends except Tommy gathered and shared their impressions. Without a doubt, Dr. Skartarud's method works. Meanwhile, Tommy was teaching a physical education class for the younger students. Thanks to alcohol, he felt relaxed. In the evening, Anika noticed that her husband was drinking wine. Martin was in a great mood and volunteered to cook dinner himself. The husband and wife had dinner together for the first time in a long time. Martin continued drinking wine and suggested to Anika that during their vacation they should go on a family hike, something they hadn't done in 8 years. Anika immediately noticed the changes in her husband. Meanwhile, Martin glanced at the time. Since it was past 8 o'clock in the evening, Martin switched to water. Without responding about the hike, Anika said it was time for her to get ready for work. It was only morning, but Tommy was already heavily drunk. His colleague found a bag of alcohol in the gym. Tommy pretended he had nothing to do with it. The school principal urgently gathered all the teachers and asked if anyone had noticed students drinking during school hours. Many were concerned that a stash of bottles was found in the gym. Later, friends advised Tommy to be more careful next time, otherwise the school administration might suspect something. Martin said he was very pleased with the progress of the experiment and suggested increasing the dosage. Everyone supported this idea. None of them admitted to being alcoholics because they believed they could stop at any time. The friends decided to determine an individual dosage for each of them that would be optimal for achieving maximum positive effects. Even the most famous politicians drank alcohol, so obviously it makes sense. Waking up in the morning, Martin first took out his stash from the freezer and drank. He no longer wants or can stop, increasing the dosage again and again. Arriving at work, Martin was already quite drunk. Of course, his friends noticed it immediately. Martin couldn't walk straight and crashed into the joint, drawing attention from his colleagues. Tommy helped him so that none of the colleagues would suspect anything. In class, Martin was on fire again. The students laughed at his jokes, and at the end of the lesson, they applauded loudly. Nikolai, who was passing by at that moment, was impressed. After the lesson, Martin texted his wife that he had booked a tour. Nikolai approached him, asking about the dosage. Martin replied that he had doubled it. Anika sent a reply message saying that she had taken extra shifts at work and wouldn't be able to go anywhere. Nikolai also increased his alcohol intake, hoping it would make him more productive, just like Martin. Having achieved this, Nikolai went to his lesson. Tommy drinks during the lesson and makes progress. His friends observe this. Everything seems to be working out for the best. After work, the guys sat on a bench late into the evening, talking. Peter shared that he really wants to start a family but is afraid of interacting with women. The next day, Peter noticed that one of his students, Sebastian, seemed down. Peter decided to support the boy, who was very worried about the upcoming exams. Sebastian had already repeated a year, and there wouldn't be another chance. Peter advised Sebastian to have a drink before the exam to get rid of his fear. Martin and his family finally went on the hike. They went boating and then set up camp. Martin remained completely sober. In the evening, the family sat around the campfire and played word games. Everyone laughed and had fun. The passion returned to Martin and Anika's relationship. Over the years, filled with indifference and misunderstandings, they had missed each other. Later, Nikolai gathered the friends at his house and suggested going a step further by increasing the dosage again to achieve a complete catharsis. Martin doubts it's a good idea, but Tommy agreed to participate. When Emily left with the children, the guys made cocktails and drank. Everyone except Martin decided to find out what would happen if they stopped restricting themselves with alcohol altogether. Martin was about to leave, but at the last moment changed his mind and joined his friends. The experiment should be conducted in a closed space to avoid negative consequences. After the house party, the friends went to the supermarket already heavily intoxicated and behaving inappropriately. Earlier, Emily asked Nikolai to buy fresh fish, but it wasn't available at the store. So the guys decided to go fishing. Of course, they didn't catch anything and continued the fun at the bar. Each of them felt as relaxed as possible and open to communication. The guys returned home very late and very drunk. Nikolai could no longer stand on his feet and barely crawled to bed. Emily woke up when she felt her husband using the bed instead of the toilet. Of course, Emily was very upset. It was morning, and Nikolai was still not sober. Emily decided to take the children and go to her sister's. Nikolai's headache was too severe for him to object. Martin fell asleep right on the road. The neighbors noticed him and woke him up. The eldest son helped Martin get home. Both the children and Emily are extremely concerned about Martin's addiction to alcohol. In the evening during dinner, Emily demanded that her husband explain to the children what has been happening lately. The boys told their father that they had noticed for a long time how much he drinks. Asking the sons to go to their rooms, Emily told her husband that she didn't recognize him anymore. Martin said the same to her. During that hike, they seemed to be happy again, but upon returning home, everything turned back into routine. Anika grew tired of the husband ignoring her in recent years, while she sits and waits for him. Hearing these words, Martin became angry and threw dishes off the table, telling his wife that she won't have to wait for him anymore. After that, Martin simply left. The friends gathered again and drank until they lost consciousness. Under the influence of alcohol they feel merry, but when it wears off, the depression only worsens. The guys came to the decision that it's time to stop the experiment, which showed that alcohol solves no problems but only leads to strong addiction. Martin lost his family, the wife left him. After the Christmas holidays, the school principal announced that she had received information that several teachers were drinking during working hours. Tommy showed up to the school meeting drunk. The friends realized that he still couldn't give up alcohol after the experiment ended. Martin helped Tommy, who couldn't even stand on his own, get home, fed his dog, and took care of cleaning and cooking. Waking up a few hours later, Tommy didn't remember how he got here. Tommy offered his friend a drink, but Martin asked him to stop. Before Martin left, Tommy said he would handle it himself, so they didn't have to come here all the time. Tommy also wished his friend good luck and expressed hope that he and Anika would reconcile. Martin also hopes for that. The next day, he met his wife at a cafe. Their son's birthday is coming up soon. That wasn't all Martin wanted to discuss. He misses the wife and children very much and wants them to be a family again. Now Martin understands that he was also at fault in their marital problems. Anika didn't want to discuss it. Her feelings for the husband had long faded, only disappointment remained. Martin confessed his love to Anika and asked her for another chance, but with tears in her eyes, she said she couldn't and left. Left all alone, Martin returned to his routine life. The good news is that his students completed the entire course and are fully prepared for the history exam. Martin wished them all good luck. Today is Sebastian's last chance to take the exam, but he got scared and walked out of the classroom. Peter followed him and offered him a drink. Peter also had a bit to drink, though he promised himself not to abuse it anymore. During the exam, Sebastian still couldn't get his thoughts together and was extremely nervous. Peter suggested he have another drink. Of course, none of the examiners suspected that the bottle didn't contain water at all. Sebastian felt more confident and answered all the questions on the exam paper. Taking his beloved pet, drunk Tommy, who lost his job, went out to sea on a boat. Meanwhile, the students were celebrating the end of the school year and their successful exam results. Sebastian, by the way, passed as well. Out at sea, Tommy's boat floats empty except for the dog. The celebration was overshadowed by the news of Tommy's demise. Soon the funeral took place. It was a heavy blow for Tommy's friends. By the way, Nikolai reconciled with his wife. Alas, Tommy couldn't overcome his addiction, and it ended tragically. After the funeral at the cafe, Martin, Nikolai, and Peter had a few drinks in memory of Tommy. Sometime later, the friends gathered at the restaurant and had heart-to-heart conversations. Suddenly Martin received a message from his wife, who wrote that she missed him. By the way, Peter got himself a girlfriend. They've been on 3 dates already. Anika was ready to give her marriage with Martin a second chance. At that moment, the graduates drove past the restaurant, celebrating the end of school. Realizing that his wife had forgiven him, Martin felt relief, and together with Peter and Nikolai, joined the graduation celebration. The men didn't refuse alcohol. Martin felt both joy and sadness at the same time. On the one hand, he was glad his wife forgave him. On the other hand, he missed Tommy terribly. Finally, Martin performed the dance he learned in his youth. As for the moral of this story, everyone must decide for themselves.